the Thwaites Glacier, the Doomsday Glacier. It's not the biggest of glaciers, but it works like a cork in a bottle of night timber. It holds back the ice beneath or behind it. NASA is telling us the glacier melts with 100 meters a year. That is enormous.
Marianne Hagen, that is the co-lead of UArctic, the Seabed Curtain Project. The World Economic Forum projects that the floods alone could cause 8.5 million deaths by 2050. If you fail, we all get in serious trouble because that's 3 meters high sea level rise.
The UN estimates the migration just by those 65 centimeters to be approximately 400 million people migrating. Threatens food security, real estate values, your ability to get insurance. What happens to bank loans when you can't insure your property and real estate drops? That contributes to a financial instability. This is a costly project. The cost of doing this will run in the billions. The cost of not doing it will run for sure in the trillions. Just for real estate loss, damages and repair and protection for removing people from the 20 biggest megacities.
Hello everyone. My team and I have been crafting content and stories that inform, inspire, empower, and bring real value to you. If you haven't already, please take a moment to check that you're subscribed. It's the easiest way to support our work and stay updated with every new release. Join us on this journey of learning and discovery. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for our latest drops.
Hello and welcome to the Dinis Guarda YouTube podcast show, powered once again by citiesabc.com and wisdomy.ai and businessabc.net. I'm very excited today to talk about something that is changing the way we can actually survive as a civilization, as humans, and something that is very dear to me, that is nature and the future of nature, especially when it comes to the global levels of how our civilization, our countries are dependent of the sea levels, the climate change, and a lot of different things that comes when we touch about things as powerful as the levels of the seas that can affect the lives of millions or billions of people worldwide. So in this series, I welcome Marianne Hagen, that is the co-lead of UArctic, the Seabed Curtain Project, that is funded by the Tom Wilhelmsen Foundation, a project powered by the Norwegian Institute for Water Research, NIVA. Marianne is former Deputy Minister of the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and she has a passion for changing the world, but she's actually doing it. And she probably has one of the most sensitive areas when it comes to everything we're dealing, but I think it's quite invisible, because although we see all these blockbuster films talking about the risks we're facing when it comes to the melting of the Arctic or Antarctica, there's still a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of tipping points, especially happening as we speak. So today we're going to be talking about the topic that is very dear to me, but as well, I think should be dear to everyone listening to us, because this affects everyone, from citizens, governments, and anyone in the world. Marianne, it's a pleasure to have you here, and I'm very excited to talk with you.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
So Marianne, you've been doing amazing things, and your profile is very impressive, from minister to working in different projects around the world, and as well from Norway to the world. And to start for the audience, I have a huge personal passion for Norway since I was a child. I think I had this kind of relation with the Nordics, and probably from the Arctic. I don't know, probably in some other life, I probably would be Norwegian. And I live in Sweden as well for a while. So I would like to start by telling us a bit about your personal background especially from beginning of your career, but even some childhood story that made who you are now. I always like to go to childhood, and I don't know if it was a parent of yours or a professor, someone that influenced it to be who you are now, and a bit of context of what it is to grow in Norway.
Thank you. And of course, as Norwegians, we like and love everybody who likes Norway. And there are, as you say, plenty of reasons to really like Norway. We have a fantastic nature. We have freedom of movement. There's nothing particularly dangerous here. You can, as a child, you can just roam around and climb trees and climb mountains and kind of be free in a way. So going back to what shaped me, I think that is closely connected to the Norwegian nature and the Norwegian way we bring up our children. So when I was a kid, my grandfather particularly, he had a profound love for the forest, particularly the birds, and also plants. And I just remember, holding his hand, walking around where he lived, and he pointing out all kinds of birds and flowers. And he also collected flowers when he was traveling and put them in his flower bed in front of his house. So you can say that this flower is from that mountain, this flower is from that mountain. So it just was a very integrated part of my childhood. And also both of my parents, my father was or is particularly interested also in birds like I am. And my mom was really into flowers. So we spent a lot of times, hiking in the mountains, running in the forests nearby, cross-country skiing. All our summer vacations, we went to this island outside Sweden, Öland, which has this fantastic fauna, very special plants, lots of orchids, and extreme number of exotic birds. So that's what we did when I was a kid. We went out early in the morning with binoculars, sitting and waiting for a bird to show up. So, and while I was sitting there, of course, my father, being an engineer, asked me, okay, why do you think the wind is blowing, Marianne? What's happening with this? Why is the sea level rising? What creates waves? So making us question everything we saw around us and try to figure out why does it work the way it does? So getting this both profound love for our details in nature that are observable, but also understanding how the dots are connected. That's probably what makes me tick, and also what makes me, have this great passion for leaving that nature, make sure stabilizing that nature, so that my grandson, who is now 7 weeks, 2 days old,
Congratulations.
Thank you. So to be sure that he also will have the benefit of just walking freely around, roaming the woods, roaming the mountains, and seeing the things that I take for granted.
So picking what you just said and this wonderful background of your family and the passion for nature, and as well from your grandfather to your father. So tell us a bit about your career. So you have a fantastic career that started, of course, working with a lot of organizations around the Norwegian government, and as well a lot of ONGs, and now you're leading a fantastic world project. So a bit of that background from historic.
It's like I keep asking myself why this. I have this sense that I have a responsibility to the world, and I can actually make change in the world, and with that also comes great responsibility. So let's say I was 15 when I got engaged in politics. I was engaged in other organizations before that, but at around 15, I engaged in politics because I felt the responsibility to contribute and to try to change people or improve people's lives. So that early engagement in politics, and I was active for more than 20 years in that part of my life, always in opposition, just to have mentioned that. That has built my resilient character, I think, just being in minority for 20 years, not being able to take for granted at any point that we would actually get the politics that we were working for to be decided upon. So that way I got to know a lot of people and the way society works, basically, and also, of course, talking to people, understanding their challenges, and understanding the ways that we could actually help. I think that's the foundation for everything I've done since. And one thing I would like to mention to politics. Politics has a bad name now. It didn't used to be like that, but it's always been criticized. What I love about politics, in addition to the ability to actually improve people's lives, is that in politics, your background doesn't really matter, your money doesn't matter, your wealth, your family, even your career doesn't really matter. What matters are the ideas that you can bring forward and the way you can sell them and the way you can create coalitions to support your politics. That's the only thing that matters. And I think that's a big equalizer, because it's what you can think and what you can pronounce that actually is what you bring to the table as a politician. I think that's special for politics. So I would like to, raise the flag and say that's a good thing. So more people should embrace politics. And also in politics, it's just that space is full with people that really, really are using all their spare time, weekends, working for nothing, just to improve other people's lives. That's a quality that I think we should, think more highly of. So that was my entrance to everything else that I'd done. So that led to some, I was member of boards of different companies in the energy sector, in particular, hydropower, which is one of Norway's biggest forces, in the health sector. And then eventually those board memberships became just individual. They started up I was appointed from political starting point, and then it just became personal. So I got re-elected and elected to other things. So I got quite some board experience, and that is also a platform for improving people's lives and making a change. So I like that.
Well, that's very special, and I completely subscribe to what you mentioned about the importance of politics and civic action, because I believe that when we let the politics be managed by people that are not putting politics in the center of society in a good way, we have a dystopian society. That happened in history, continues happening. So coming back to your work from these institutions to the government, you were always at even as deputy foreign minister, you were always working in bringing a lot of connection towards the facts of nature, infrastructure, and as well maritime transportations, and then the sea. So tell us how that grew on you, and that to become, of course, the stage where you are right now with your present projects.
I'm very happy to do so. I started out after I studied law, I started out in the Norwegian Shipowners Association. And Norway is, as you might know, fourth or fifth largest shipping nation in the world, based on if you consider tonnage or value. And we are also close to nature, care about nature, and the whole driving force in the shipping industry when I entered that space in 2002, if I remember correctly, it was how can Norwegian ship owners turn being the most green of shipping companies into into an asset. How can we make that a comparative advantage for the Norwegian ship owning companies? So how can we improve the hull? How can we improve the scrubbing mechanism? How can we improve everything in operations to become green, to use less oil and gas or oil and bunkers, which also is reducing emissions. So how can we improve operations to save bunkers and also save emissions? And how can we turn that into a comparative advantage for the Norwegian ship owners, owning companies? So that was 6 years constantly striving to have, making it more profitable for the companies, but also using the position as the number 4 or number 5 to change the IMO regulations so that the Norwegian standard became the global standard. And when we were like a year or two ahead, that would be our comparative advantage. So that was the driving force, always trying to not cut corners in the negative way, but to cut emissions and cost for the companies. So that way I started connecting and understanding the role of business in reducing emissions and the role of organizations and clever management to combine what is profitable, what lowers your costs and lowers your emissions at the same time. So that was 6 fantastic years. We were also, of course, working on the taxation regime in Norway. So we got a very favorable tax regime in place, which has probably been the major contributor to Norway still being one of the largest ship owning nations on the planet. So, but the lesson I walked away with was that when emission cuts and production costs are connected, that's when you make progress. That's where you can achieve the goal. And then after the Ship Owners Association, I was, asked to come to the Royal Palace, and I was there for almost 10 years. And the royal family, they are very concerned about climate, very concerned about nature, and have a great love for nature, I would say. So a lot of the things that we were working on and with for those 10 years was like circling around climate issues and climate consequences, learning about what is going on and what can we do to make a better future. And remember, at this time, the world was pretty optimistic. We had the Sustainable Development Goals, we had the 2030 goals. We were I think most people, at least in the Western world, we were thinking that we are actually going to get there. This was the era of globalization. We were all one global village, and we were working for the same goals. That kind of thinking really, really resonates with me. I really like being a part of a big team working in the same direction for the same goals, and something that is beneficial to all, that helps the poorest and is also good for the Western world. So I really like that. So there was this very positive go in the right direction. And then I was asked to join the government as Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. And very interesting times, because things were kind of starting to crumble a little bit. This was in 2017. And so there was this debate about UN reform, global institutions. The WTO, the World Trade Organization, was starting to really experience challenges. The discussions about developing countries and developed countries, tariffs, all of that was kind of in flux, but it was possible to save it at that time. It was within grasps to have it land on the right side. And Norway was competing for a seat on the Security Council. And we thought we had a clean slate and that we were not going to campaign. And then Canada also suddenly joined the race. So it became a race. And I was fortunate enough to be the deputy minister without small kids, so I could travel. So that meant that for those at least 2 years, I was traveling like worldwide with everything in my hand luggage. So I got to visit. I've been so many places, and this is not to brag. It's just to say that I sat down and spoken with leaders of nations, wealthy nations, poor nations, nations at risk, nations that doesn't have a future, and understanding the diversity of the world, obviously, but also the commonalities of the challenges. And at the core of those challenges, you find climate change, consequences of climate change. That affects hunger, it affects poverty, it affects the energy question, everything. And this period of time from 17 till 20, there was still hope. And of course, since Norway was a candidate for the Security Council, the debate was on how to improve, how to reform, how to make sure that we have institutions also moving forward that are robust and will deliver for everyone. So it was a very positive vibe over those 3 years. There were challenges, definitely, but there was also this. And this is probably also the Norwegian role in the global village, that we have the role of carrying collaboration forward. We have a role in standing up for climate and nature, and not the global south, that's too unnuanced, but for alleviating poverty and hunger. So we have an interesting position on all the important issues of our time. And this was a time where there was still a struggle between, right and wrong, black and white. And we truly thought that we could win it if we just could have this conversation with everybody. We would basically want the same thing. So, and after 3 years, of course, we had the pandemic. So the Minister of Foreign Affairs didn't travel much because of the travel ban. So at that time, there was changes in the government prioritizing more interior questions, because that's where the challenges were at that time. And of course, we won the seat on the Security Council. So when I left government, for the first time in my life, I wasn't just picked from one job to another. I had time to reflect. And I went up to my cabin where I am right now, and I just decided that I will take a step back and I will make a decision of what's important to me. How do I want to, spend the rest of my working days? So I came up with this, I think, pretty interesting strategy. I knew I wanted to do something related to climate. But what I did is I know a lot of CEOs and leaders of foundations and people on very high level. So I kind of called them and I said, "This is Marianne. I'm sitting here at the cabin. I know there's a pandemic going on, and I have 2 questions for you. And the first question is, where is the most progressive and interesting business environment in Norway right now?" So that was the first question. And then second question was, based on your knowledge of me, where do you think I could make the biggest contribution? And then I said, I don't want your answer right now. I don't want this to be off the bat. I want us to set a date in a couple of weeks. And I'll come to your office and we'll drink coffee, and then you can tell me what you have concluded with. So I spent so much time with all of these CEOs in all these empty buildings, drinking coffee during, what was it, 2 months or something, just getting this big overview of what's exciting right now and how can I help. So that was a very interesting maneuver, because during my previous jobs, I only know kind of the top level. And I don't know all the things that are moving just on the level below. And often that's where the fun stuff is going on, right? So I needed to get more insight into that fun stuff, that what's going to create the future. So after that process, I got this offer from Aker Solution, which is a big global engineering company working in the oil and gas industry, basically, and the energy sector, but headquartered in Norway. And I was taken in to lead the sustainability work. And I had to have this really heavy conversation with my 3 kids, or our 3 kids. And I was like, I know this is the dark side, but I will explain why. I still want to do this. And the reason I still wanted to do this is that I understood that just by connecting the dots, that there is not going to be any relief on the climate, in the climate space, unless you have the energy sector completely transformed. And this company had really bold ambitions. Being, as I said, a fossil fuel industry company, basically, they had set targets that in 2025, as of last year, 1/3 of their revenue would come from renewable. That was achievable, and it was achieved. But the really hairy one was that by 2030, 2/3 of the revenue would come from renewables. That's an enormous shift. That is energy transformation or energy transition. So they said, okay, we understand. You go, try your best to change this company and help them on that energy transition. So I said yes. And then, long story, a little bit shorter. The Ukraine war, the full-scale invasion by Russia in Ukraine, and this is just my impressionism, that overnight the whole debate shifted from all hands on deck for climate transition or energy transition to energy security. And in that space, the energy security space, Norway plays another role, because Norway still has enormous fossil fuel resources. And we have the industry, we have the knowledge. So it made sense that when Europe had to pivot away from the Russian dependency, Norway was stepping in and stepping up as the robust and solid, friendly provider of the necessary energy. So that means that Norway will continue to focus on fossil fuel, developing fossil fuels for a long time forward. And that is not, I understand why that is necessary, but it's not a scenario or something that I want to dedicate my resources to help achieve. There are more than enough hands on deck and good hands and heads in that space. I wanted to do something else, because now the climate consequence scenario turned much, much uglier. And that kind of brought me to where I am today. So when I gave up, I would say, or realized that I could not in any meaningful way contribute to reducing emissions, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about reducing emissions and eventually removing carbon dioxide from the oceans and air, but reducing emissions, that's what's important. And I could not, from that position, in any meaningful way contribute to that goal. And I'm not the only one that who was working to achieve that goal. But I came to realize that we are not going to get there in time. There is no way we can get there in time. And then what? What's the plan B?
So I want to touch that in particular before we go to your work and describing the Seabed Curtain and the UArctic. So As you mentioned right now, Norway and partly your work and a lot of people in Norway has been consistently ranked among the top countries in the world for sustainability. And this has been driven by a combination of abundant natural resource, strong environment policies, and heavy investment in green technology. So I would like to elaborate, and of course, there's a huge focus on renewable energy production, low emission transportation, and the management of natural resources. I would like just for people listening to us, because of course, like you mentioned right now, we have like two paradoxes. I think scientific, everyone understands that we have to do, like you just said, to low carbon emissions and do things that has a massive impact for all of us and our countries. At the same time, we have people denying that, which is, of course, doesn't make any sense and is not scientific or even realistic. And then third, most of the country are struggling because there's other geopolitical issues and considerations. So from your experience with the government and as well working with governments around the world, like you said, you've been going all the countries around the world mostly. How can we bring this success to other countries, just from the case study of Norway, before we go back to UArctic and Seabed Curtain?
That is a huge question, and there's a lot of entrances to answering it. If I start with the Norway piece, what made Norway a success? Of course, it's luck. It's always luck. But if you look away from luck, there are different approaches to how you handle your luck. Norway has been lucky with hydropower, that we're almost 100% used. The electricity that we use is from hydropower, which is basically free because we developed it a long time, more than 100 years ago. That is luck. And then when that luck was ongoing, we had the luck of finding the oil. And that was luck. But what was not luck, but what was really clever politics, is that the decision the politicians made when they found oil, it was in 1969, they decided that we will, of course, we need the Americans as the initial phase, but we will develop industry. We will develop the supply chain in Norway. And even more importantly, we decided that this would be something that we own together. All Norwegians own this resource that we luckily found. So it was decided that the revenue from the fossil fuel industry or oil production and eventually gas production would be gathered in the fund, which is now the sovereign fund, one of the two largest, if not the largest fund on the planet, and that belongs to all of the Norwegian people. And we decided that we wouldn't just spend it. We are just spending up to a maximum, I believe it now is maximum 3% of the interest. That's what we spend. The rest we keep. And this is for all future generations. It's not only my pension. It is for all future generations. I think that was clever. It was the one decision that made the whole difference for Norway. So we have a great welfare system that benefits everybody. So there are very few people falling through the cracks in Norway. And there has been up till, let's say, the last 10 years, we are one of the most, countries with the least, what is it called? Altitude between the poorest and the richest. So it's a very, we are quite even and equally positioned. Almost everybody goes in public schools. Almost everybody uses the public health care system. Almost everybody is entitled to a pension. We get paid if you're unemployed for a period of time. If you're sick for a period of time, you are not, on your own. There is a support system. And that support system, and that over time, as a Norwegian, you trust. I pay a lot of taxes, but I get back. I get free schools, free roads, free a lot of free things. And if I get sick, if something happens to me or my family, we are taken care of. And with that knowledge, you also pay your tax with, empathy, at least. I wouldn't say everybody's equally enthusiastic about paying the taxes, but we are paying the taxes. So the trust that I contribute with what's fair, and I am secure and my family is secure, that enables trust in a society. And also we are low on corruption. I think that is the key factor for trust and transparency. Of course, we are a full-fledged democracy. You have freedom of speech, freedom of congregation, all the human rights are, it's a given. And also looking at the Norwegian society with an outside perspective, our greatest wealth is not the oil. It's that we have women completely integrated in the workforce. The wealth created by having 100% of the population working instead of 50%, that's the big money. So I think those factors, and of course blessed with this nature, and Norway is a very long country, we're a big country as well. So if you turn Norway around, if this is Oslo and this is up north, and you turn it around, you end up in Rome. So all the way across Europe, that's how long Norway is. And then of course you have Svalbard up in the Arctic in addition. So we have been blessed with many, many things, but we have also played our assets well and made some clever decisions on the way that has made us a very robust society, I would say.
So passing through that, and this, I'm a huge fan of the case of Norway, and I believe that it should be more studied. And like you mentioned, the gender balance, and as well, I have a lot of Norwegian friends. There's as well a sense of passion for life, and almost an existence nihilism or cynic. I think that's a big problem in most of the countries when we get cynicism. People really don't focus on the values, and nature makes you down to earth. So coming back to your project, and I think this is a key element.
But you also asked about what are the challenges and how can politics adapt to the new realities, and why is politics falling short of the challenges that we are facing? And I don't think this is rocket science in any way, but it's the combination of when's the next election, what's the cost of preventing something, and who's going to pay me for preventing something. And if the line in time is too long, it's very, very difficult to be re-elected and doing something that is good for the future. And I think it's that simple, and it's that simple everywhere, I think. So that Norway is no different than anyone else.
Yeah, well, there's still a lot of differences. So
yeah.
picking on your experience on the government, and like you mentioned, you were in a position for a long time, and then you were in the government as Norwegian Minister of Foreign Affairs leader. And as well, now you are co-leading the climate tech initiative that is UArctic Seabed Curtain.
Yes.
So for people that never heard about it, what is the UArctic Seabed Curtain, and how can it create a real-world impact, and how can you achieve that?
The Seabed Curtain Project is a very focused, targeted proposal or idea of a climate intervention that will delay the global sea level rise substantially by delaying the melting and the collapse of, in reality, one particular glacier in Antarctica, the Thwaites Glacier, and better known as the Doomsday Glacier, and that is for a reason. So that's I'll get into more details later, but that's the basic idea, is asking the question, is it possible to delay the global sea level rise? as we do know that, and this is not controversial, that's the sea level rise is the most damaging and costly consequence of climate change. It's not the heat waves, it's actually the sea level rise, as it will erode and reshape coastlines everywhere. And when you start to think about coastlines everywhere and everything that is on the coastlines, and if you just sit back for 10 minutes and take that in, you understand. And then you can take in that it's not only the coastlines, it's also every major city and agriculture area with a river, because that river will also transport warm or salty seawater on land. So that's what we're trying to do. And I can also say something, who's UArctic, because that is not a household name yet. So UArctic is a network of universities, institutions, more than 200 of them, that are interested in all kinds of questions related to the Arctic, and to an increasing degree also Antarctica. But it is the Arctic, the peoples of the Arctic, the nature of the Arctic, the resources of the Arctic, the social welfare systems of the Arctic, all based on, centered around universities and things that can be studied. So that's UArctic's role. And with the increasing, what should I say, the epicenter feeling that you have when you live in the Arctic or very close to the Arctic, that this is really the epicenter of the world right now. At least it was until the Iranian war. But looking back at the Greenland discussion that we recently had, you suddenly realize that, okay, there is an Arctic up and people live up there. More than 4 million people live up there. And it's important for the future of the planet, for many, many reasons. So that's UArctic's role. And was there a question?
Yes, I want to touch that, was because this is so one of the fantastic things you're doing, and this is a bit science fiction, but is as well a massive project, is, and I will try to explain for people listening to us. So, and this comes from your website. So 3 meters of global sea level rise is being held at bay by barely stable, rapidly fining ice sheets that hang into ocean waters. The Seabed Curtain Project will limit sea level rise by creating barriers that could protect ice sheets from warm ocean waters that flow beneath the fringing ice shelves. So mostly your project is creating a strategy that is to create an 80 kilometers long, 150 meters high curtain anchored on the seabed at 650 meters depth in front of the Thwaites Glacier. So this is kind of a science fiction thing, but this is happening. So can you tell us about this and how this can actually slow physically the glacier melting that you just mentioned?
Yeah. So I will give it my best shot. When you say it, sounds really simple and easy. And I assure you that nothing about this is easy. It's extremely difficult. But I keep, every morning when I get up, is that just because it's extremely difficult is no excuse not to try. So that's what I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing. I will try. So if we zoom out a little bit, there are tipping points in the Earth systems. And they are predicted to tip at different levels of temperature rises above the pre-industrial level. So the first one that is expected to go, and we know that for a fact that is happening, is the Great Barrier Reef. So that is like number one of the global tipping points. The number two of the global tipping points is in Antarctica. And it is the Thwaites and the Pine Island, but the Thwaites Glacier, the Doomsday Glacier. And it is expected to be at risk at 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. And I believe that we will say in hindsight that we passed that point last year. So we are there right now. And then zooming a little bit, then you have the global, that's the tipping points, and then you have zooming into Antarctica. Antarctica it's a continent of ice. Everybody knows that. Almost no one has been there. So very few have a vivid picture of what it's like to be in Antarctica. I have been there, so I have an understanding of the scale, but only the scale that you can actually understand as one human being. It's enormous. So, and it's all ice. In West Antarctica, you have this one glacier. And why is that so extremely important? And that is Thwaites. And that is because if you look at the geography of Thwaites, it's in West Antarctica. It's not the biggest of glaciers, but it works like a cork in a bottle of night timber. It holds back the ice beneath or behind it. And unfortunately, if you look at Thwaites, I'm using my hands. Of course, that doesn't give meaning to the ones that are looking at that, but I'll still use it. You have a continental shelf in Antarctica, and then you have the deep oceans. In the deep ocean, you have the conveyor belt. So you have big streams of warm, salty bottom water just moving around the planet constantly for thousands of years. It just moves around the planet. Unfortunately, in front of Thwaites or leading into Thwaites, there is a channel. You don't find that a lot of places, but it's a channel. It was made by the glacier a long time ago when it was, retrieving. And that channel is about the size of Grand Canyon, just to give you an idea of the size of it. So it starts where the continental shelf starts, and it goes straight into Thwaites Glacier. And that is the problem. Fortunately, in that Grand Canyon channel leading from the deep sea across the continental shelf all the way into the glacier, there is a sill. It's a natural bump. It's a moraine from the glacier, left by the glacier. So for hundreds of thousands of years, that warm water never crossed that sill. It just kept on moving along the Antarctic continental shelf, and then it went back up north. And at some point it came up warming Norway as the Gulf Stream. But because of climate change and changes in wind patterns, basically, the new winds allows, or put it in another way, it blows the ice cold water on top. And this is counterintuitive because you would think that the warm water was on top and the cold water was at the bottom. It's the other way around. And the reason is that you have an ice shelf and it's breaking off ice and it's melting. So it's fresh and it's light. And then you have the conveyor belt, warm water in the channel on the seabed. So when you have these changes in wind and low pressures on the pole, it blows the cold water away up north. That doesn't mean that the sea level drops. It means that the warm water takes up the space, and then suddenly that warm water finds its way over that sill, that moraine in the Grand Canyon, creeps over it, and then it has a free path all the way for 250 kilometers in under Thwaites, where it just, licks away on the soft underbelly of the glacier, melting it. And NASA is telling us, based on satellite images, that this is the place on the planet with the biggest change. The glacier melts with 100 meters a year, including what's underwater, of course. So that 100 meters a year, that is enormous. Some of it grows back in the winter, and the winter is fortunately very long, but it drops. So it's the place on the planet with the biggest change in altitude or elevation. So then the Professor John Moore that I co-led this work with, in 2018, he was looking at the profile of another fjord, which is exactly the same in Greenland, the ice fjord in Greenland. And this is the fastest melting glacier on the planet, the ice fjord, or the Jakobshavn glacier in Greenland. And he was thinking to himself, look at that sill. Shouldn't that be helpful? And what a pity that that sill isn't just a little bit higher to keep the warm water in the deep ocean. So then the idea was planted, and it was as late as 2018. So then he started thinking, together with other international scientists, how can we make that sill? Is it possible to make that sill a little bit higher? And then different ideas came up. And the idea that we believe is the solution right now is to have something really light, reversible. You can take it away if it has negative consequences. It's possible to deploy. It doesn't disturb the sea floor to any large extent. So we believe it's going to be a really light seabed anchored curtain, self-buoyant, covering approximately one third of the water column. So you will have about 400 meters above the curtain that is free water, because you are not trying to block the water. You are just trying to restrict the warm water that is not all the time, but increasingly often creeping over the sill. You're just trying to prevent that water from entering the Grand Canyon, because that is the problem. So I have seen videos and presentations of this idea, and you can see they are trying to fence in all of Antarctica. It's not like that. You can compare it if you have a leakage in your basement. You have some water intrusion in your basement. You don't fence in the whole house. You try to find out where is the water coming in. And then you put a plug in that hole where the leakage is. That's basically what we are trying to do. So if you look at the scale, even though you said the numbers that we believe that this is going to, or the scale of it, 80 kilometers long, 150 meters high, anchored at sea, 650 meters depth. That is, if you zoom out again and look at Antarctica, that would be like a needle in one particular position. And it is about 200 kilometers away from Glacier, Thwaites. So it's not right in front of it, because then it would have to be much bigger. So it's where the warm water comes in. We want to put a plug in the hole where the warm waters comes in.
That's very, very impressive, and I impressive, but as well scary. So I want just to highlight, and I know that we're passing the time, but if Marianne, if you can, at least 2 or 3 more questions.
Oh,
so
yes.
one key thing for me. So I just prepare for the meeting, and I like to look at these things, because of course when you think about this, you probably get some nightmares, but at least you want to act, and that's, I think, what you're doing, and that's what we need. So of course, to fund something like this is bigger than the line in Saudi Arabia, and it touches everyone in the planet. But I just want to highlight for people listening to us, because I want to create more awareness, especially young people, but everyone, decision makers, leaders. So there's the imminent and long-term possibilities of disaster that can come from if we don't fix what you're talking about.
Yes.
And by 2050, many coastal once-in-a-century flood events are expected to occur annually in many locations. And of course, if the weather goes up 1.5 C, there's a lot of consequences. And I did a bit of a research using a couple of AIs, and I was a bit even more perplexed, because in the end of the day, in terms of disaster, we're talking about just if which 2026, like you said, the estimated sea level rise by 30 centimeters, which seems like small, but it could go to 1.5 meters higher. And the cities like Shanghai, which has some of the biggest cities in the world, Guangzhou in China, Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, Mumbai, India, Jakarta, Bangkok, respectively Indonesia and Thailand, they could actually affect millions of people. And we're talking about that the higher danger zones, Bangladesh, 18% of the country land could be underwater by 2100. And the Netherlands, of course, that has the world's best defense, but cities like Amsterdam and Rotterdam could be exposed and partly disappear if nothing is done. And then, of course, in the US, Miami and New Orleans. So, and then just to finish, and I want to, of course, provoke the audience, but as well, this is not provocation. This is actually possibility is very real. In terms of flood and disease, the World Economic Forum it projects that the floods alone could cause 8.5 million deaths by 2050. So not a small amount of people. And the wet bulb temperature could create silent killers in South Asia and Middle East. And then, of course, the saltwater intrusion, like you said, in the rivers could create famine all over the world. So I just want to touch these things. So this is, and then of course there's still potential bigger disasters because, like you said, if the Doomsday Glacier that you mentioned collapse, if you fail, we all get in serious trouble because that's 3 meters high sea level rise. So I know that this is probably a doom scenario that we have to tackle, but from your experience doing this project and of course funding this project, how are you funding this? How are you creating awareness? And count on me, of course, but I think everyone listening to us should be taking this serious because it affects our food. And I'm not even talking what we are humans doing, because what is happening right now with geopolitics will create much more issues. But I want to touch this from your perspective and from the fantastic work that you're doing, and congratulations for you and the organization.
Thank you for those kind words. I think the UN estimates the migration just by those 65 centimeters to be approximately 400 million people migrating. That's a lot of people. It threatens food security. It threatens, and that's maybe also interesting for the business community, real estate values, your ability to get insurance, what happens to bank loans when you can't insure your property and real estate drops. That contributes to a financial instability that I don't think will benefit anyone. This is a costly project. We are estimating it to around 80 billion for the seabed curtain in Antarctica, which is, according to the New York Times article that you should all read because it has these maps of all the cities, including in cities in the US. London is not mentioned. London is definitely one of them in trouble. There is, where was I going with this to see the time? I'm thinking now. Yeah, if you look at New York City alone, they are right now spending between $8 and $9 billion just protecting Lower Manhattan and New Jersey, but they also have a project at $52 billion. That's protecting one city. That is one city. So by 2 times New York City, you could do this for everyone. And sure, the cost of doing this will run in the billions. The cost of not doing it will run for sure in the trillions.
Yes.
It will run in the trillions just for real estate loss. It will run in the trillions just for damages and repair and protection. It will run in the trillions just for removing people from the 20 biggest megacities. That will have to change and move. Look at the power grid. Railroads, roads closed on city lines. Think about agriculture, irrigation systems, corroded, removing freshwater supply for people and animals. It's just colossal consequences. So then billions become cheap. But at the time, when this project gets at a stage where we are talking trillions, it's a national, it is a matter for nations, because it has to be a collaborative effort by nations. It will be governed by the Antarctic Treaty System, which is easier than the UN with 190 some countries trying to agree on something, which seems very difficult these days. But to get the Antarctic Treaty countries to actually agree, that should be achievable. So the costs are staggering, but nothing compared to not doing it. And I think I was having this conversation with somebody that was really, I always try to ask the critical questions to my own project because that's the way we learn. So, and she said, she got fed up with me and she said, Marianne, there is going to be a curtain. Just listen to me now. There's going to be a curtain. It could be that tiny one that we're talking about, or you could fence in the coastlines on the planet. What do you think is going to be the easiest or the most damaging and the most costly? And I was like, okay, we get it. We stick to the little one. So when you think of it as just a needle in one point, but the point, the crucial point that can take off these 65 centimeters and holding back the 3 meters for all, that's what makes it worth it. It is nothing that you need to worry about the scale up of this idea, because this is not the scale up idea. This is the position. There might be 3 or 4 more locations on the planet where you can do the same, but they are smaller than this one. It is the major point. And when we in design make it reversible, it means that if it has negative consequences, we can take it away. So for funding now, we are looking at philanthropists like everybody else, because national funding for science and research these days is going down for many reasons. And it's not only the US, it's also going down in Europe and other places. And there are at least 3 reasons. We are getting older and more expensive. We have fewer taxpayers everywhere. So that's one group. And then you have a lot of investments in defense industry. That's the second one. And then you have a lot of climate consequences that you have to pay for and adapt to and mitigate. And that's the third one. And when you have paid for all those 3, not much money left. So I think we need to look for philanthropists for this first phase. And the first phase isn't that incredibly difficult. We're asking for 10 million US dollars or pounds or euros. We're happy with all. And we want to make a 3D digital model of the Amundsen Sea, which is the sea area in front of the Thwaites. And the reason we need that, and the reason that you and everybody else needs that, is that that will help us understand how fast will it melt and what kind of future do we have to prepare for. So when you're planning that next, real estate development or roads, you can go into a forecast model and say, where is the water when this project is done? And then you can make your own risk assessments. So we all need that forecast model, like a weather forecast model. Of course, the project that I co-lead, we need it because we will introduce in that model a virtual curtain or a restriction to see how high it has to be, if it will work at all, if in the models we can change the temperature, which we are, I would say, more than 100% sure that we will, but we also need to prove it. We need to show to the nations and to everybody that would consider funding this that it actually will have the impact that we say it will have.
So I want to provoke a bit here, and I
Yes.
work in AI, and I'm an AI technologist. Cannot we create? But first of all, my question, because 10 million is very small to build what you're talking about, because you need billions of dollars. But like you said, the consequences of not doing is trillions of dollars of damage, and I think everyone understands that. Even I think the shift in climate change and the of course what we discussed about just the consequences for health, for food security, and so forth. So my question is, cannot we create a coalition of companies and organizations? Because if you look at least well, if you look just at the top 7 companies in the world,
Yeah.
they represent around 10 to 20 billion, 10 or 20% of the world economy. And they are as well building infrastructure in terms of consumption of energy that will be creating much more challenges. But at the same time, for instance, the experience of Norway, like you mentioned, that you create a sustainable ecosystem using both organic and renewable energy and putting the ecosystem together, they actually created the solution. I believe the problem is not science or even technology. The problem is actually more mind frame or mindset for this. So my question for you is, cannot we create a bit of a coalition between scientists, companies, and technologists, and creating, I don't know, the Doomsday dashboard?
Yes.
And actually, I'm eager to create that with you. But I feel that this is kind of ridiculous that we're not even shouting more on this. And like you said, at the moment, we are creating weapons probably to destroy humanity. And we have AI already that is coming on the middle. So I want your opinion, but actually a pragmatic opinion. How can, because you are doing this, it's not like science fiction. You are doing it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think we're kind of modest or being on the safe side. As a politician and as a person that worked in communication, I know that the world needs easy yes or no answers and need cost. When is it going to happen? And what are the consequences going to be? And right now, we can't answer that. We know it's going to be grave. We know it's going to be enormous. We know it's going to be costly, but we can't be precise. And that's why we want to develop the 3D digital model with existing data. And we think we can do that for 10 million. But you might know better than us that that's not going to be enough. But that's what we are planning for the next 3 years. But then the next phase, and that's, we will start planning for that immediately. And we are already planning for it. The world needs an underwater observatory sending real-time data back home about what's going on in this area. It's going to have an energy hub. It's going to have unmanned vehicles. It's going to have fiber optics on the seafloor, monitoring constantly what is going on. That's going to be 100 million plus concept. And that is going to be, if you could use AI and the companies that you are, engaging with and your expertise to make that dashboard, combining NASA observations, the underwater observatory observations, real time, and other existing data from that area, then you can project exactly what's going, not exactly, but you can predict in a way that we are, centuries away from right now, what is going on and what can be the solutions. Because in models, you can run all kinds of solutions and test all kinds of combinations of solutions. So that is the next phase. And we would love to sit down tomorrow or later today to discuss how can the knowledge that people like you have on available data tools, how can we work together to get the information that we need to protect and to develop solutions? That's the next phase, and that phase could easily start today.
Now, count on me on that. And I think for everyone listening to us, this is actually, I think, an urgency that, for instance, I'm a father and I have children. And not only we are creating a new kind of super intelligence, but we are creating as well all these issues. So to wrap up, and we pass here 1 hour and a half almost. So I would like to go on. So you are a very positive person, and I respect your energy as well and your passion for this. So for people listening to us, how can they get involved on the UArctic Seabed project? How can they engage? And as well, how can we create more awareness? And as well, secondly, from your experience as a politician or former politician, and as well as a citizen, how can we all of us make a difference? Because I think we have extremists right now in the extreme right, extreme left. We have the Green parties in Germany, in the UK, and a lot of other countries, but no one agrees with anything. I think we have to, first of all, in order to achieve this, make a pact. I think it's like, okay, if our house is down, okay, so if the boat is sinking, We cannot just continue arguing all of us, because the boat would sink anyway. My question is always, and this is what I try to do, how can we do something about it, all of us?
What I decided for myself is that I see this world of problems, just to be literally a world of problems. And then I did the analysis. What can I actually impact of all of those challenges that I see? The one thing I can actually impact is that 65 centimeters of sea level rise for everybody. And is there anything else I could do that would be remotely close to that? No. And so everybody else that also wants to impact those 65 centimeters of water, that's they can work with us. This has to be a collaborative effort. I totally agree with you. We're a strong team, but we are still a small team. So of course we need businesses, we need in-kind collaboration and the best brains out there on all aspects, on the engineering, on the modeling, on the data gathering, on the funding, on the outreach. So we need to build a community around this that think this is important, that are willing to invest in something that is not occurring next week. It's not the wildfire that are coming this summer. This is a few decades. But if you have an ambition for your business or for your family office, that it has a time horizon that is longer than the next quarterly report, this might be of interest to you. This might be something that you would like to engage with. And I would suggest that they reach out to you. Dinis would be an excellent point of contact for this. Or go to our website, which is just seabedcurtain.org. You will find the contact information. We will take meetings with anyone, everyone. And we will say yes, please, to all invitations to come and talk about it, whether it's online or in person, because this is a decision that is not to be taken lightly. This is a decision that has to be taken by a wide community globally. And we are very far from that, even though we are getting a lot of media attention. I think the journalists are actually the group on the planet right now that are starting to see the dimensions of this challenge, and the rest will follow. So also on our website, you will find an updates page, and we try to add all the articles, positive and negative, about the project that we come across, so that when you go there, you can get a fairly balanced overview. We're not trying to tell anyone that we have the one silver bullet solution. We do not. We can impact one of the biggest problems. We can impact the 65 centimeters of sea level rise for everyone with one targeted, reversible, specific climate stabilizing intervention. That is my love goal and the goal of the project, and we would love to become more people working for the same.
Well, kudos to that. Count on me, Marianne. It's been very inspiring. I really respect, first of all, the initiative and the capacity, because doing this, I think, is using the best of humanity to protect humanity and to create new solutions. And I think I probably will make on my community a challenge to create a data dashboard about the Doomsday scenario and what we can do for that, because I think there's, for instance, a lot of organizations around the world trying to do, but not at this level of detail. And I think even explaining this level of detail, and I think, like you said, the UArctic initiative with universities can make a big difference. So kudos, Marianne. We're going to probably do more sessions on this, but for people listening to us, and that's my final note, is please follow Marianne, engage with the organization, and do something, because this affects everyone. And I'm in London. London is full of water, like you said. I have team in Mumbai. We have team in Jakarta. All over the world, this has impact. So thank you so much, Marianne, for this amazing time here with me. But as well, thank you for making the effort to change the world, and with very specific things, not just with words, but action and initiatives.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. And I welcome you all to be a part of this team as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode. Please share your thoughts, questions, or a topic you want next in the comments section. My team and I read them all and will tailor our future videos around your feedback. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next drop. Until next time, stay healthy and informed.